Welcome to My Green Comms, the podcast for people who care about communicating sustainability with clarity, confidence, and zero greenwash. This show is here for the thousands of small and mid-sized businesses and changemakers who are doing the work but often struggle to talk about it. Because let's be honest, sustainability communication has gotten noisy, regulations are tightening, expectations are rising, and the pressure to say the right thing can feel overwhelming. So each episode, we break it down. We explore the stories, strategies, and real-life lessons that help brands communicate with integrity, avoid the traps, and build trust without the jargon. You'll hear practical tips, conversations with experts, and the occasional rant about buzzwords we should retire forever. Whether you're a comms professional, a sustainability lead, a founder, or just someone trying to make sense of this evolving space, you're in the right place.
Thank you for joining us on episode 2 of the My Green Comms podcast.
We're doing a deep dive today into something that's quietly reshaping a lot of corporate strategy.
And it's something that I think doesn't get talked about nearly enough. We're talking about the intense and just rapidly changing reality of sustainability communications jobs.
Right.
Because if you just look at a job description, you see these, cozy terms like storytelling or messaging management.
Yeah, brand narrative.
Exactly. But if you're actually sitting in that chair, you know the job has fundamentally changed. It's not really a marketing function anymore. It's become a critical function of risk.
And we're pulling our insights today from a really sharp reflection piece by Lee Green. It focuses on why these roles have become, and this is the quote, harder than ever and more important.
That just sums it up perfectly.
It really does. So our mission today is to unpack all of that, the operational, the strategic, and let's be honest, the often frustrating pressures that are defining this career path right now.
And the stakes just couldn't be higher. We're in this new era where getting sustainability communications wrong, it's not just a bad headline anymore.
No.
It can lead to litigation, to regulatory fines, and, a potentially existential damage to a company's reputation.
It's a really necessary conversation because that margin for error is just shrinking so fast. And the support systems for the people in these roles, they really haven't kept pace.
Okay, let's unpack this.
So Lee Green's piece makes this great point about the quiet evolution of the job.
Right, because it wasn't that long ago that sustainability comms was, a lot simpler. It was mostly about awareness, celebrating the good stuff, sharing positive progress.
It was definitely storytelling with a very positive slant.
Absolutely.
But that era is gone. It's completely over. The role has shifted so dramatically from being like a little subset of marketing or corporate affairs into this unique high-stakes intersection.
It's not just telling stories anymore.
Not at all. Yeah. We're talking about navigating risk, trust, all this new regulation, reputation, and probably the biggest one, just massively heightened expectations from everyone.
And the source material breaks it down so well. It lists these 5 really specific, complex demands that have just landed squarely on the sustainability comms person's desk.
And when you see them laid out, you get it. You understand why storyteller just doesn't cut it anymore.
Not even close.
It's all about operational complexity. So let's just walk through them. First, practitioners have to translate this incredibly complex environmental and social data.
Yeah, stuff from engineers, from finance.
Exactly. And they have to turn it into language that's accurate, but also understandable and, compelling. That's 2 different expertises in one.
And second, they have to be these quasi-legal experts now, right?
Totally. They're navigating this spaghetti of global regulations, disclosure rules, CSRD in the EU, the SEC rules. They're all different, all changing. If you don't get the legal side, the communication is dead on arrival.
Okay, so what's the third one?
The third is where the internal politics come in. You become a diplomat.
Ah, yes, the internal alignment.
You have to align all these different teams. You've got legal, who only sees liability. You've got finance, who only sees carbon cost. And then you have marketing, who just wants that killer headline.
And you're in the middle trying to get them all to agree.
You are. And fourth, you're the gatekeeper. You have to sense check every single claim, not just for tone, but for whether it's actually defensible. Can we back this up with evidence?
It's basically an internal audit function.
It is, which leads to number 5. You are the primary line of defense against greenwashing accusations. You are managing all of that intense public and regulatory scrutiny.
When you lay it out like that,
Yeah.
all 5 of those things, You realize this person isn't just writing talking points. They're managing internal coherence, external integrity, strategic risk. It's a massive workload.
What's fascinating here is this isn't just communications anymore. It's risk management, internal diplomacy, and strategic judgment rolled into one.
And that workload, it leads right into this big misalignment problem that Lee Green really focuses on.
The unicorn problem.
Yes, the unicorn problem. Anyone who's looked at a job ad for sustainability comms recently is just nodding their head right now.
They really are. Organizations want one person who can write the annual report, but also implement ESG frameworks, manage the CEO's media, handle compliance.
And still deliver a viral campaign on top of it all.
It's like they're asking one person to master 5 completely different professions.
And that's not just difficult, it's structurally toxic. You're setting that person up to fail, and you're setting the organization up for failure.
And that failure gets magnified by the absolute core tension of this job, which is the responsibility versus power paradox. This is, I think, the most defining and yet least acknowledged part of the whole career.
Let's just stay on that for a second. What does that actually mean day to day to have responsibility without decision-making power?
It means you're on the hook for everything. You are externally accountable for the company's reputation, for the legal defensibility of every single claim.
Right.
But you don't have the power to control the inputs. You're told to own the narrative, but you don't own the supply chain. You don't own the data. You certainly don't own the final budget.
So the crunch point is being held accountable for claims or content that you, as the comms professional, didn't create, didn't collect the data for, and you couldn't veto it.
Precisely. You could use all of your expertise to say, hey, this net zero claim feels premature. The data's not there yet.
But the CEO wants to announce it.
But an executive insists on announcing it to please investors, and then you're the one left managing the fallout when the greenwashing allegations hit. You're managing a crisis you tried to prevent.
Wow. So, if I'm hearing this right, the biggest single cause of burnout is being expected to clean up a mess you weren't actually empowered to stop in the first place.
I think so. That's a huge strain.
Right.
And that structural tension is the very thing that's forcing this big strategic shift in the function itself.
You mean the pivot from marketing to trust?
Exactly. The move away from just being a marketing or a positioning function to becoming, first and foremost, a trust function.
And that is a massive organizational change. The old goal was simple: promotion. Make us look good.
Right.
The new goal is building and, maybe even harder, maintaining credibility when everyone is watching you.
And what's fascinating about making trust your number one priority is that it completely flips the definition of success.
How so?
Well, if your metric is trust, then a win often looks kind of counterintuitive. Good sustainability communications today is often completely invisible.
Invisible success. That's such a critical insight. Because in traditional comms, success is volume, visibility.
Of course.
But in this world, success might be the big campaign that never happened.
Exactly. The campaign that got killed because the data wasn't strong enough to stand up to scrutiny.
Or it's the huge claim that got softened.
Yeah.
You know, changing the language from "we are solving climate change" to "we are working toward our goals" to
contribute to a solution. Yes. You prevented a massive overstatement, and you avoided the reputational hit that would have come later. The win isn't the headline. The win is the absence of a crisis.
But that has to cause a ton of internal friction. I mean, how do you go to your CMO or your CFO and explain the value of a crisis that didn't happen?
That's the constant battle. It means the team has to be measured on impact and integrity, not just on output. It requires a whole different mindset.
You have to be okay with communicating progress, not perfection.
And you have to have the confidence to ask those hard questions internally, even if it means you're the one slowing down a big project.
Which brings us back to those real unwritten skills Lee Green talks about. The things that actually keep a company out of trouble, but you will never, ever see in a job description.
These are the core capabilities, and they're basically strategic judgment mixed with a lot of courage. Like having strong, almost instinctive judgment about what's actually ready to be communicated and what needs more time, and being able to translate between, say, the super technical biodiversity team and the general counsel who only thinks in terms of liability.
And crucially, the confidence to just push back, to say, no, that claim feels overstated, which that takes a lot of political capital inside an organization.
Capital they often aren't officially given, which goes back to the paradox. They also have to be comfortable with uncertainty, with incomplete data, because that's just the reality of ESG right now.
And above all, that instinct for credibility over polish. The market is just too smart now for these perfect glossy narratives.
You have to show the nuance. You have to show the struggle, because that's what signals honesty.
Here's where it gets really interesting. These skills, the judgment, the pushback, creating that healthy friction, that's what actually protects the organization.
But they're so much harder to quantify.
And harder to support internally. And this lack of support with all the pressure is why we have to talk about how technology, like AI, can help.
Absolutely. And the conversation around AI isn't about replacing these people. It can't. It's about augmenting them. It's about giving these overloaded unicorn practitioners a tool.
A kind of early warning system.
A tireless, low-level early warning system. That's a great way to put it.
It can really help with the sheer volume of, compliance checking. We're seeing some really practical uses for it now.
Definitely. AI tools can sense-check claims for common greenwashing risks, like vague language or empty promises, way faster than a human ever could.
It can scan a 50-page report in seconds and flag every time you use the word eco-friendly without a data source right next to it.
Which frees up the practitioner for the real strategy work. It can flag absolute language. It can stress test your messaging to make sure it's consistent.
So AI helps you figure out in minutes if a claim is risky or premature, and then you can focus your time on the human stuff, the diplomacy, the strategic pushback.
But, and this is the most critical distinction, AI does not remove the hardest, most valuable part of the job.
No.
The human judgment part is completely irreplaceable.
Because AI doesn't sit in those internal meetings. AI doesn't understand the power dynamics, the unspoken pressure to get a good headline out before the end of the quarter.
AI doesn't understand politics or incentives. It doesn't carry the personal consequences if trust is lost. So it gives you better prompts, earlier warnings, but it still relies on a human to make that final call.
And that, as the source concludes, isn't a limitation of the technology, it's the point. The ultimate value of the person in this role is applying that hard-won context and making the difficult human judgment call.
So we've kind of covered the ground here. The role is more demanding, the tension is constant, and the whole function is shifting from generating volume to managing trust.
And I think the core takeaway is that the role is more critical than ever, but the institutional support just hasn't kept up. Organizations are expecting these unicorns to operate without clear frameworks, without a shared language for risk.
And without the space to actually sense-check these high-stakes decisions. That's the missing piece.
It's what creates all the friction.
So what does this all mean? I think the conversation inside companies has to shift. We have to move beyond just asking people to tell better stories.
Right.
And instead focus on giving them the structure and the internal credibility they need to communicate responsibly. The goal isn't finding better storytellers, it's building better systems for responsible communication.
Because at the end of the day, credibility isn't built through perfect, glossy messaging. It's built through better decisions made much earlier in the process. Decisions that the sustainability communications professional is in the perfect spot to drive if, and it's a big if, they're actually supported and empowered to do it.
That's the whole ballgame right there.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for joining. If you found today's conversation useful, feel free to share it with a colleague, a friend, or someone who's currently wrestling with their latest sustainability comms challenge and could use a little support. For more tips, resources, and weekly insights on how to communicate sustainability responsibly without the fluff, sign up for our newsletter or try out the free version of the MyGreenComms AI tool. You'll find everything at mygreencomms.com. And if you're enjoying the podcast so far, a quick follow or review helps more people find it and join this community of credible communicators. Thanks again for listening. And remember, good sustainability stories don't need to be complicated. They just need to be honest. Until next time.